Febrile. If somebody is febrile, it means they are experiencing a fever. It's the presence of a fever in a person. Okay, so if you see that, you know that a person is experiencing some sort of fever, and fever is indicative of some sort of infection in the body. There's something going on in the body, usually a viral infection, because the body is trying to destroy the virus by increasing the body temperature. Okay, so febrile means presence of a fever. A fistula is there are a few examples of a fistula in the body. The most common one is an anal fistula, where the rectum and the skin are kind of joined. A pathway develops between the rectum and the skin. So a fistula is a location where an organ has developed an opening into another. So anal fistula, the rectum develops an opening into the skin, as opposed to just going into the anus. So that's kind of one of the prime examples of a fistula. Just there's some sort of pathway to another organ that should not be there from one specific organ. Okay, moving on. Idiopathic. So I think when I think idiopathic, I think idiots. Idiots don't know anything, right? Idiots don't know anything. So idiopathic means the disease has an unknown cause. Okay, so something like fibromyalgia could be an idiopathic disease. There's no real known cause for that disease to occur. I mean, there might be theories, but nobody knows for sure, right? So idiopathic, unknown cause of disease. Idiots don't know anything. Unknown cause. Incision. When you make an incision, if a surgeon makes an incision into the body, that means they are cutting into the body, right? So incisions are typically made using scalpels. Scalpels, really sharp, small knives that allow a lot of control. They're really, really sharp knives that are able to easily cut through tissues like skin, muscles, nerves, really anything in the body except maybe bone. So scalpel. Anyway, moving on, incontinence. So if somebody is experiencing incontinence, they have lost control of the bladder or the bowels. So they are unable to hold urine or feces in like they normally would be able to. So diapers are available for people who might experience incontinence. Other things like catheters that collect urine in a bag could be used. Colostomy bags could be an option for people with bowel incontinence. But incontinence means you can't control these functions anymore. They just kind of happen whenever they want to happen. Okay. In situ. Now this refers to cancer. Okay, so if you see the name of a cancer or name of a tumor with in situ attached to it, that means that it is the original location of a tumor. It means in original place. That's where the cancer started, is still in that location. Okay, so like melanoma. If melanoma occurs in one spot, like let's say I develop melanoma right here, right next to solid snake, right there, right next to snake. If I develop melanoma right there, and then it spreads throughout the body, this is still here. That's melanoma in situ, right there. That's the spot where the melanoma first developed. Okay. Moving on, intravenous. Intra means inside, venous referring to a vein, right? So it's inside of a vein, and that usually references injections. When you have blood drawn from the body, they use veins. Phlebotomists will use veins to draw the blood out. Okay, so intravenous, inside a vein. Ischemia. Now this is a good one. Ischemia. So you might experience ischemia in the heart muscle if you have a blockage in the coronary arteries somewhere, right? Ischemia is lack of blood flow to an area. Now, so if you have a blockage in one of the coronary arteries that supply the heart muscle with blood, you have lack of blood flow into the heart muscle, and that can cause necrosis, which we're going to talk about, death of tissue, in just a bit. Now, let's say I am bedridden for whatever reason. Let's take a look and let's see if this works. Now, I'm putting pressure on my skin, right? I take that pressure away, and let me get a little bit closer here. Now, pay attention to the color of my skin as I take my finger away. Oh, that's a lot lighter, right? In that little area. That's ischemia. There's lack of blood flow in that area. And this becomes a problem in cases such as decubitus ulcers. Okay, so pressure ulcers, bed sores. If somebody is bedridden, they're stuck in that one position, they're constantly having pressure placed on parts of the body like the sacrum, like the back, the lower back especially. And that's why people need to be turned so that the pressure is taken off those areas, so blood flow returns into those areas. And that's how pressure ulcers can start to develop. You get ischemia for too long, that pushes out the blood, which pushes out the oxygen supply to those tissues. And if your tissues aren't getting oxygen, just like your body, if your body doesn't get oxygen, then you're going to die, right? If that tissue isn't getting oxygen, then that tissue is going to die. And that's what happens with decubitus ulcers. That's what can happen with the heart muscle that can result in myocardial infarction, right? Too much heart muscle dying because of ischemia can cause a heart attack, myocardial infarction. Okay, so ischemia, lack of blood flow to an area, which may result in necrosis. Okay, moving on. Malaise, general unwell feeling or discomfort is malaise. So when you have a viral infection like influenza or something like that, you might experience malaise where you just don't want to do anything. And that was kind of one of the symptoms of coronavirus, right? How you know that you might have coronavirus. You're just really tired all the time. Like you just don't want to do anything. You just don't feel good for whatever reason. You're just exhausted. That's malaise. Okay. Malformation. It's a structure that is not formed properly. So mal means bad. So it's something that is formed badly. It's not formed the way it should be. It's formed badly. Bad formation. Okay. It's just not formed the way it should be. Moving on. Malignant. So we have benign, where a tumor does not spread, right? Can still grow, can still negatively affect the body, but it doesn't spread to other parts of the body. Malignant, mal, bad. Just remember that. It's bad, mal, will spread to other parts of the body. So malignant tumors spread, and that's why they're a lot more serious. Malignant melanoma is a very serious form of cancer because it spreads throughout the body through the blood and through the lymph, right? Other forms of cancer, leukemia is a malignant form of cancer that spreads throughout the body. Breast cancer is a malignant form of cancer that spreads throughout the body. Okay, so if it's a malignant form of cancer, it will spread. If it's a benign form of cancer, it can still grow, but it doesn't spread to other parts of the body. It doesn't start affecting other parts of the body. Okay. Moving on. Necrosis. Now, I just kind of talked about necrosis with ischemia because those two kind of go hand in hand, right? Ischemia, lack of blood flow in an area, which means lack of oxygen. If a tissue isn't getting oxygen, then that tissue will die. Necrosis is death of tissue. Okay. So if you have too much necrosis happening in heart muscles, specific parts of the heart, too much necrosis, you could end up with myocardial infarction. If you have too much necrosis in the skin, especially if you're bedridden, you have too much pressure being placed on those parts of the body, like your back, You can develop necrosis in the skin. And that's when you develop the pressure ulcers, the open sores in the skin. Not a good thing. You don't want necrosis in parts of your body, right? You want everything in your body to be alive and well and functioning properly. So necrosis means death of tissue. Neopathy. So neo, again, don't say matrix. Please don't say matrix. Neo means, like neonatal, means new. And pathy means disease. So it's some sort of new disease. Okay, so if a disease has developed that we are unfamiliar with and we discover it, right, it is considered neopathic. It's a new disease. Okay, moving on, pallor. Now, sometimes if you are sick, you might develop pallor. If you have a lack of things like iron in your diet, you might develop pallor. What do you think? What is pallor? Or if you're my wife, you might have permanent pallor. It is general paleness. My wife is very, okay, I don't want to say very. She's relatively pale. It's the Irish genes in her, I suppose. As opposed to me, I'm Italian and I tan pretty well. Not very pale. So if you ever see me and I'm pale, you know there's something going on. My kid, my oldest kid, kind of looks pale at times. Go ahead, eat something. Eat some iron. Eat something with iron. You know. Anyway, pallor, general paleness. So if you're not feeling well, you might experience pallor for whatever reason. Just not. Anyway, moving on. Palsy, like Bell's palsy, like cerebral palsy. So let's think about Bell's palsy. Bell's palsy affects the face, right? One side of the face. What happens to one side of the face? It becomes paralyzed. Okay, so palsy means paralysis. If somebody has Bell's palsy, half of the face paralyzed. Okay. Let's see, peptic. And we see the term peptic, like peptic ulcers. There's a certain acid that helps digest food called pepsin, right? So if we see the term peptic, it's referring to the stomach. So there's something going on with the stomach. Peptic ulcer is an open sore in the stomach, usually caused by the stomach acid, like pepsin or hydrochloric acid, mainly eating through the mucus, the lining of the stomach, and then eating the inner wall of the stomach itself. Peptic ulcer, that sounds pretty painful, actually. Ooh. So peptic, like how about Pepto-Bismol, right? Pepto-Bismol has to do with the stomach, right? Stomach. Anyway, moving on. Phlegm. Phlegm and sputum are the same thing. Okay, so those are two terms that have different names that that are pretty much interchangeable, right? So phlegm are secretions that are expelled from the lungs. Okay, so when you maybe have pneumonia or something, or bronchitis, some sort of infection in the lungs, and you start coughing, and then all of this mucus starts coming out, that's phlegm or sputum. Okay, that's essentially it. So I always feels like there's a little bit of phlegm trapped in here because of my asthma. That's one of the fun parts of asthma, is an increased amount of mucus production in the lungs. So I always feel like I'm coughing things out of my lungs, constantly expelling phlegm or sputum from my lungs. So phlegm, sputum, same thing. Secretions expelled from the lungs. Okay, moving on. Phobia. So phobia, arachnophobia, fear of spiders, right? Phobia means fear, some sort of fear of a thing, a situation, a person. Just any type of phobia, it's going to be you are afraid of something. I can't really think of anything I'm afraid of at the moment. What are my phobias? First rule of the internet. I learned this a long time ago. Don't tell people what bothers you. So I'm not going to tell you what I'm afraid of. I will never in a million years. I'm afraid of people finding out what I'm afraid of. How about that? That's my phobia.